All right. Good afternoon. We have an outstanding panel of mayors and business leaders that will have a conversation on building generational wealth through housing. It's no secret that wealth is often achieved through homeownership. Our challenge is one of equity. Minority home ownership is far below what it should be. The panel will discuss how this can be addressed. Our panelists are San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, Molly Porter, Senior Vice President, Interim Head of the Wells Fargo Foundation, and Wesley Brooks, Homeownership Lead for Housing Affordability Philanthropy of Wells Fargo. Molly Porter will serve as moderator of the conversation. Please welcome them to the stage.
Great, thank you everyone. We're so glad to be with you today. Thank you Mayor Turner, thank you Mayor Gloria, thank you Wes for joining us. And I'm excited to be spending some time with all of you talking about a topic that I know is important to all of us, which is housing affordability and working together to ensure that everyone in our communities has access to safe and affordable housing, and particularly that they have the opportunity to build generational wealth through homeownership. The Wells Fargo Foundation certainly isn't new to these issues. And in fact, we've just recently launched 2 new programs where we'll deploy more than $100 million in philanthropic capital to support more equitable access to housing. The first program that we'll be talking about today is our Growing Diverse Housing Developers Program, which is a $40 million initiative designed to produce more than 2,000 new affordable homes in markets across the country. And we'll do that by working to deploy extra capital to diverse-owned housing developers. And the second program we'll be talking about is our WORTH program, which stands for Wealth Opportunities Restored Through Home Ownership. And this is a program that will create 40,000 new homeowners of color in 8 markets across the country by funding public-private collaboratives, including one collaborative that's focused exclusively on rural and Native communities. So I'm really excited about both of these programs, but of course I know they're just 2 of the programs that each of you are working on in your cities and other mayors here are working in across their cities. So today I really want to hear about innovation. I want to hear about what's working in each of your cities, how you're thinking about housing affordability, and how we can work together to help close the racial and ethnic homeownership gap. So with that, we've got a lot of questions and not a lot of time, so let's dig into it. And my first question is going to be for our 2 mayors. So maybe Mayor Gloria, will start with you, and then we'll give Mayor Turner an option to respond. And I want to start by talking about supply and the supply side of the housing affordability issue. I know that in both of your communities, there's not nearly enough affordable housing for the families that need it. We know that real estate development is the answer, but it's complex, it's costly, and it takes a long time. You heard me talk about Wells Fargo and our Growing Diverse Housing Developers program. That's certainly one strategy that you can take to meet this supply challenge. But can each of you talk a little bit about kind of what you're doing in your markets on the supply side of things, and what's working? What innovations are you seeing that's making a difference? So.
Well, Molly, thank you. Thank you to you and Wes. It's good to be here with my friend from Houston to talk about my favorite subject, which is housing. I will say in answering to your question, as a mayor, I think what we have is land use authority and permitting authority, right? And what we have to do is to permit or zone our land sufficiently. California is trying to be leaders in this. We have advanced legislation to make apartment buildings near transit basically turnkey, taking single-family properties, being able to subdivide them into duplexes and lots of stuff in between. We're taking all of that from the state. I know a lot of times we have a raucous relationship with our state partners, but in this case, we're taking every bit of that and implementing it, and then going beyond that. So whether it's upzoning of community plans, we have neighborhoods that currently have capacity for 4,000 units, and we're asking them to upzone 20,000. It's not without political peril, but I believe that this problem is so large that there's a willingness to go in this direction, and I'm still sitting here, so we're good. And so I think that zoning, along with some regulatory certainty, and that gets to the permitting part, increasingly shifting permits that were previously discretionary to be ministerial. And then in California, doing programmatic EIRs so that we're bearing the responsibility of the environmental clearance process rather than the developer. Saves time, saves money. Trick, of course, is to get that reflected in the for sale or the rent price. We're not quite where I'd like to be as mayor yet, but we have not had these conversations before. We're having them now, and my hope is that we'll start seeing some progress in the space.
Wow, that's fabulous. Thank you. Mayor Turner, what are your thoughts?
Thanks, and it's good to be with everyone and to discuss this topic. I think for most mayors, housing affordability is critical, and there is a shortage of supply, and it's getting even thinner and thinner. When I came in, I set this, identify what we call complete communities, focusing on 10 communities in the city of Houston that quite frankly have been underserved, under resource, lack of investments. And we said we would build these communities up. And so we named a number of things, housing being one, parks, job opportunities, you name it, and making them complete communities. And so we focus our resources in building single-family housing in these 10 areas where there's a significant shortage. I set the goal of building, for example, 3,000 single-family homes starting from last year to be completed by the end of next year. When I go out of office, we want to get that done, 3,000. So we are well on our way. We put forth this bonding initiative, raising an additional $100 million just for single-family homes. We're utilizing those dollars, for example, to provide the additional infrastructure, working with developers, which will lower the cost. We've also worked to lower the cost of that land acquisition, which ultimately will lower the cost of that home. So we're doing those things and we're easing the permitting process. But we've said to the developers and others, look, we will streamline the permitting process so you can move these things along much quicker. But the goal for single-family homes, 3,000 by the end of next year, and we're on target.
Wow, that's impressive. And some similarities, I think, between your strategies, too, which is great. So for our next question, I want to bring my colleague Wesley Brooks into the conversation. Wesley is our expert on all things home ownership at the Wells Fargo Foundation. And Wesley, I want to talk to you a little bit about wealth building. So we know that to really achieve the American dream of home ownership is one of the best ways that families in our country can achieve generational wealth. But the systems that we have right now for achieving that dream, they're not working. And they're not working in particular in communities of color. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you see home ownership fitting into the overall housing affordability equation? And then specifically, what should the role of the private sector be in helping out with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the question, Molly, and Mayor, it's a pleasure to join the stage with you. It's no secret to anyone on the stage, and I'm sure no one in the audience, the value that home ownership brings to not just the family, but the communities. They're more stable, they're more equitable. Schools have less transiency, they produce stronger outcomes. Access to parks, transit, those things factor into the affordability of the house and the dollars that the family gets to keep in their pocket. But homeownership built the middle class in this country. And there's a whole demographic of Americans that were kept out of the ability to see the gains that came from affordability, from homeownership through multiple generations. And I think the role of the public sector is first to acknowledge our role in getting here and the opportunity that we have to correct it. So back in March, Wells Fargo announced our special purpose credit. This actually allows lenders like Wells Fargo to specifically look for homeowners of color within our portfolio to lower their interest rates, to make sure that they can see the wealth that is there in their property when they refinance. The second thing that we did, and you mentioned this, was we announced our Worth program. Wealth opportunities restored through homeownership, awarded to 8 markets to increase homeownership in families of color, households of color, by 40,000 in 8 markets. 2 of those markets are here with me on stage, Houston, San Diego. In other places, New York, Richmond, Philadelphia, Atlanta, my hometown, I think the mayor's over there somewhere. Also the Rural Collaborative, and in Milwaukee. So I can't highlight enough how important it is that philanthropy is kind of the cutting edge of the sword on innovation here. Philanthropy is flexible, It's able to assume some risk, and that's perfect for being innovative when it comes to addressing a need like housing and home ownership. And really, it's incredible for us to create new tools, new strategies, new systems changes that can allow us to close that racial wealth gap.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love that concept of philanthropy as a laboratory. You know, for me, that's part of why I want to do this work and part of why I think the Worth program that we're launching with both of you will be so successful. So I've got time for one more question. I want to go back to our mayors again. And I want to talk about what Wesley just brought up, which is the racial and ethnic homeownership gap. And we know that this is really a staggering issue, quite frankly, both in terms of its scope and its complexity. And it's one that both of you have been leaders on within your cities. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you're thinking about the homeownership gap in your cities? And what role do you think the private sector might have in coming alongside you to help support your efforts?
Well, I mean, first, it's important to acknowledge that the racial gap exists.
Yes.
Okay? And it existed for a long time, and it still exists. And when you start looking at, for example, black ownership, home ownership, that number it's been going down, down, and continues to go down. So let's recognize that and accept that as a reality. For black home ownership, it is not 50% or above. It's 47%, for example, in Houston, and less in many other areas. So we have to address that. And for people who are seeking to buy homes, there's issues with the down payment, the closing costs, the appraisal of their homes if they have a home right now and then they're seeking to buy another. And that's why for many people of color, for example, when they're trying to sell their home, they remove everything in their home that would identify their home as being occupied by people who are black. Okay? So anything that looks black in the home, they pull it down. Well, that's unfortunate and shouldn't be that way. So we're needing to address that. Home education classes, financial empowerment centers that we've set up, for example, in the city of Houston, trying to work to increase that down payment assistance with all the tools that we have, in some cases from $50,000 that we're able to provide up to $150,000 for some, to try to make it easy. We got to make it possible for them to get beyond that 20% down payment so they don't have to pay their private mortgage insurance, which also provides a hurdle. The private sector and others, we need private sector to come on board and to be partners with us. And when mayors go to the financial community and say, these are the things these are the problems, these are the tools that we need, you just can't keep telling us what you've been doing. You got to recognize that sometimes there needs to be a paradigm shift. Otherwise, the problem is going to remain the same. So we have to acknowledge that the problem exists. These are the realities, and then we have to work to change those realities in order to change those numbers. And quite frankly, mayors have to be at the table demanding the change. And that's why, for example, I still live in the same hood that I grew up in. I still live in that same hood. My parents purchased a home some 60-some years ago. Both have died, but before my mom died, she said, Sylvester, you will promise me that my home will never be sold because I don't want any of my grandkids or great-grandkids, if they have a problem, if they need a place to stay, that they can't come there. But the private sector, financial institutions really have to step up to the plate and do a heck of a lot more than what has been done in the past.
What he said.
Denzel.
So I agree with what Mayor Turner was saying, and our stories are very similar. I think about what my grandparents had to do in the 1950s to buy a home in San Diego. And after they were told 9 million times, someone finally said, yes, but you had to put a lot more down than any other white family on that block. My grandfather went to his grave telling me that story. And it was no small point of pride that his grandson could become mayor of a city that was trying to shut him out not that long ago. But to your point, these things were happening, and it wasn't that long ago. That house, my grandmother, God bless her, she passed away last year. She died in that home. She was a retail clerk her entire life, but she had the security of that house, and it allowed her to retire in dignity and to live in her home until her last days. That's what we're talking about, right? And so why I'm passionate about housing is I recognize that the redlining that she was going through, that they were going through then, is our restrictive zoning laws that are today. Right? So if we're holding down supply and the cost goes up, if you didn't come to the table with generational wealth, you're not going to be able to buy anything, right? And if we are only permitting the kinds of stuff that's basically rental housing, you're talking about single family. I love hearing that because we don't build enough for sale housing, right? A lot of this stuff is rental. And you talk about down payment and mortgage insurance and whatnot. Let's talk about HOAs, everybody, right? If you can afford a rent in San Diego, you can afford a mortgage. But if you slap on a $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 a month HOA, you're out of the market, right? So what we have to do is make sure that we're zoning for housing, recognizing that every one of those is not housing, it's a home, and that home presents the opportunity for generational wealth building, and that what we have to do is back it up in the private sector. Can I say the financial instruments, the leadership is helpful, but I need more CEOs at the council hearings articulating on behalf of upzoning and making sure that we're building more housing, right? Every job creator in my city tells me this is the #1 issue. They can't attract or retrain talent in San Diego because it's too darn expensive. Well, we can't leave this argument to the builders. We have to have other folks in here saying, I'm not here to make a profit. I'm just a guy trying to create jobs in this community. That's why we have to build more housing. So I hope that folks across this country will get involved. This is not a San Diego. This is not a Houston issue. It's not a big city issue. This is an everybody issue. Every mayor has told me that homelessness and housing are the biggest issues in your city. Homelessness is the clearest expression of our housing affordability crisis. But for every homeless person, there's probably 10,000 families that live in paycheck to paycheck or can't see buying a home in your city, and they got their eye on the door. And that's not a way to run a town. You have to have people like your mama who stayed there for generations, right? That's what you have to have a successful city. That's why I'm passionate about housing production.
So we're going to have to leave it there right now. But before we go, I just want to say that I'm, leaving this conversation hopeful. I think the innovations that both of you have discussed are impactful. And what we know, what all the mayors in this room know, is that change is local, right? And all impact starts local. And if we can all do the same kind of things that both of you are doing, I'm very hopeful that we're going to come together around these issues of housing affordability. So with that, I want to say, Mayor Gloria, thank you so much for joining us. Mayor Turner, Wesley, it's been a pleasure. And let's keep the conversation going for the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Great.
I think that's it. I can go back.
All right, I hope everyone's enjoying their lunch. You guys enjoying your lunch? All right. We now turn our attention to the issue of the national crisis of mental health. Of maternal health, not mental health. Although maternal health and mental health may be connected. Merck for Mothers is Merck's global initiative to help create a world where no woman has to die while giving life. The initiative aims to strengthen health systems and sustain the delivery of high-quality maternity care services that benefit women and their communities. Most maternal deaths are preventable, yet the U.S. has the highest maternal mortality rate among developed countries. During this session, we will hear mayoral best practices designed to prevent these types of deaths and support pregnant people and new mothers throughout pregnancy and beyond. Here with their insights on the subject are Dr. Jamila Taylor, Mount Vernon, New York Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, and Richmond, Virginia Mayor LeVar Stoney. Dr. Taylor is a health policy expert currently serving as Director of Healthcare Reform and Senior Fellow at the Century Foundation. Mayor Patterson is the first female mayor in the history of the city of Mount Vernon and the first woman of color elected mayor in Westchester County. Mayor LeVar Stoney is chair of the Children, Health, and Human Services Standing Committee. I look forward to hearing this discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much for bearing with us for this next panel. As mentioned, the focus of this conversation is maternal health, making every childbirth healthy and safe. So we already had a good overview of Merck for Mothers and the global initiative that Merck is taking to make sure that all women have healthy and safe pregnancies. I think another thing to mention too are the racial disparities when it comes to this issue. Right now, Black women are about 3 times more likely to die of pregnancy-related causes than white women. And this is an issue that spans across socioeconomic status for Black women. In fact, white women that have not even finished high school have better maternal mortality rates than Black women. So why don't we jump right in? We only have 20 minutes and a lot to cover. So first off, why don't you all share more about what your cities are doing to improve maternal health, especially the things that you're particularly proud of at this moment? Why don't we start with you, Mayor Stoney?
Well, I think this is a very, very important topic because I think all mayors begin knowing that our children are our #1 asset, and we must take care of our children from the crib and all into their adult years. And so some of the things that we've been focusing on is first recognizing that we have a problem, recognizing that we have an issue. And so not only did the city step up, but also the region stepped up, and we created a child maternal health task force, bringing together those in Henrico County, our surrounding counties, Henrico, Chesterfield, and the city bringing them together as well. But also we understood that we needed to make investments as well. Recognizing what you stated earlier, we created a doula project where we actually put investments in the budget to fund doulas helping young mothers after the birth, during pregnancy and after the birth as well. And recently, we just put some money into a local nonprofit called Urban Baby Beginnings because we saw that there was a formula crisis as well, and we know that a number of our parents living in some of our economically distressed areas of our city depended upon WIC and not being able to actually access the formula that was on the shelves. And so we put money into a nonprofit to put gift cards into hands and financial relief into the hands of those mothers as well. And also I have to give a shout out to a nonprofit that I love so much in my city. It's called Mommies, Daddies, Babies, and Bellies. That's a mouthful.
There you go.
We're not talking about your lunch. But this has been more of a sister circle that's been used to mentor young mothers pre-birth and post-birth as well.
I love all of those ideas, definitely an intersectional approach that you're taking in Richmond. I want to lift up doulas because I love the fact that you're thinking about how to make sure that more women have access to doulas. Doulas are actually really critical. There's evidence that shows that when a mom has a doula, she has better maternal health outcomes. So ensuring that access is going to be really key. What do you have to say?
So in the city of Mount Vernon, and again, it's more of a regional approach, Westchester County, Rockland, and Putnam, we're working with the Lower Hudson Valley Perinatal Network, Sister to Sister International, and our federally qualified health centers, as well as our hospitals and a lot of our community agencies. And again, we are taking a very comprehensive approach to building out a network of services. We oftentimes talk about prenatal health care, but health care for women has to happen pre-conception.
Absolutely.
And that is one of the reasons that we see higher disparities during pregnancy and bad outcomes. And so preconception health is making sure that women are dealing with their high blood pressure, with their weight, with sugar diabetes, any things that might cause complications during pregnancy. And then we follow up and we do the prenatal care. Of course, we're using doulas. We're also using community health workers. We have a lactation specialist training program. And we are participating, we're really doing full assessments on the women so that we can identify and understand how social determinants of health impact them. Do they need housing? Do they need food? Do they need medical care, transportation, mental health services? So we've really been focusing on putting together a comprehensive continuum of services to take care of everything from preconception to that child growing up and that mother having her next baby.
Right. Well, backstage, Mayor Pattison Howard, you and I were actually having a conversation about the maternal health crisis in this country, and you shared a little bit with me about your own experience. And so just wanted to know if you were willing to share some of that with the audience today. Sure.
I got married in college, and I had my first child at the age of 24. I had a high-risk pregnancy. And as much as I spoke to the doctors and explained some of the challenges and some of my anxiety and concerns, oh, you're fine, you're okay, you're just anxious, you're over-concerned, I ended up having to be hospitalized and going on very strict bed rest for about 3 weeks. Then I was able to go home for 2 weeks. I still delivered my daughter 9 weeks early. She developed RSV. And then with my second daughter, I went on bed rest again, but I ended up going to the hospital in an emergency, and I lost my daughter at 21 weeks, 22 weeks, and I almost lost my life. She was born breathing, but we knew that she was too premature at that time. This was 27 years ago, and so 21 weeks then was difficult to deal with. They rushed her out so that my mother could hold her. But as I was trying to recover and they were trying to deliver, I guess, the afterbirth, I began to bleed profusely. And I began to bleed out, and I could hear the nurses and the doctors just crying, and they were praying, and I started praying, and I said, stop. They didn't have time to get an anesthesiologist in the room because they didn't listen to me. They didn't listen to me when I said I was feeling bad, when I was having pains. And I literally, all I could hear was just blood dropping to the ground. And I thought I was going to lose my life, and I prayed. And it was a long amount of recovery after that. And after that, I decided I wouldn't try any longer, but here I was, a woman with a degree and an advanced degree. And like you said, white women without even a high school education are more respected and listened to by their doctors than women of color. We've heard this from Beyonce. We've heard this from Serena Williams, that cultural competency and understanding when women of color and poor women tell you that they're feeling something in their body, you have to respect them enough, regardless of your medical background, education, and experience, to hear their story and to make adjustments as needed.
Here, here.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And as you said, unfortunately, too many Black women are experiencing this. I think another thing to add too is that, our maternal mortality rates in this country, really across populations, are horrible, to be quite honest. The United States ranks first out of all similarly developed countries with having the worst maternal mortality, maternal health outcomes. So certainly nothing to be proud of. That is not a place that we want to be happy about in being first in. But luckily, there are folks that are working on this issue, like these two wonderful mayors. So let's shift back and talk a little bit about racial disparities in maternal health outcomes. And we've already talked about the serious challenge this is. How can mayors take more of a leadership role to address these disparities?
You want me to start? I think mayors have to be the conveners of this conversation in their community. You have to take responsibility for pulling together the hospitals, the healthcare centers, neighborhood organizations, social work agencies, Department of Social Services and Human Services, to have the conversation. First of all, you want to make sure that we're providing education for our doctors, for our medical health professionals, and doing implicit bias training for them. Secondly, we want to make sure, especially you're talking about doulas, we're talking about community health care workers, lactation specialists. We want to make sure that the Medicaid and the insurance reimbursement rate for the services of those professionals are help them have a living wage, because they play a very significant role in supporting women throughout their pregnancies and supporting them as they're taking care of their children. And the third thing is that we want to make sure that we have a comprehensive continuum of services, as I said before, working with WIC, working with social services, looking at housing, ensuring that the women have education throughout their pregnancy, and maternal and mental health services throughout their pregnancy and after their pregnancy. A lot of women suffer with postpartum. And we want to make sure that the opportunities are there for education for the mother, job training for the mother or the family, and that we're not just serving the mother and the newborn child, but we are serving the family. They have to be able to get to their doctor's appointments. There has to be transportation vouchers available. It's not just about taking prenatal vitamins. There's so much more involved in ensuring that a woman is safe and that she's able to deliver a safe and healthy baby.
Great. Mayor Stoney?
You know, I think mayors, we have to listen, we have to lead, and we have to invest. You know, when I talk about listening, I mean mayors have to put themselves in the spaces where they can actually listen to residents who are going through these issues. Right? I remember I had a roundtable discussion in one of our public housing communities about this specific topic. And I think these issues go unheard, unseen, unless you're living them. And so mayors, no matter the color of their skin, no matter what gender they may be, you have to put yourself in those neighborhoods, put yourself in those shoes, and listen to what they're going through. Second, mayors have to lead. And what I mean lead, we have to be the example for state government sometimes, federal government, but also sometimes for the private sector as well. I'm very proud that in Richmond, we enacted 8 weeks of paid parental leave for our employees. And we all know that, and it's the most generous paid parental leave program for any local government south of the Potomac, south of Washington, D.C., and Arlington, that area in Northern Virginia. But we also know that I've had men, I've had women come to me and say, you know what, Mayor, the greatest thing you could ever do for me is give me 8 weeks uninterrupted with my child.
Wow.
And that, you know, brought tears to my face because, you know, this is, you know, sometimes, you know, people look macho, look like it was the most important thing that we had ever done for one of our employees. And lastly, we have to invest. We need to invest in programs that we talked about earlier, like doula project, the maternal task force, relief for some of our parents. But also we have to invest in foundational programs like affordable housing access. We've invested in fare, free transportation so folks can get from their home to their job without paying a dime. And also, we've also invested in our universal basic income program as well that features pregnant women too, so they can actually not worried about, some of these folks are working and they just fall in the gap. They're on that brink, that financial brink every 2 weeks. And so we provide universal basic income, $500 a month to ensure that they get through the month.
That's wonderful. Yes. So a theme that we've seen, I think, in this conversation is listening to women, listening to pregnant people, both in the context of being in a healthcare setting when women express discomfort, pain, something is not right, so in the context of their healthcare providers, but also, Mayor Stoney, you mentioned listening to, you know, the people in your community who have experienced these outcomes. Can you unpack that a little bit and tell us, you know, how are you working with, you know, moms and new moms in terms of shaping policy or shaping some of your programmatic goals when it comes to addressing these issues?
You know, what I mean by listening and putting yourself in that space, it also means that when you form task forces like the one that I mentioned earlier, the Child Maternal Health Task Force that brought in the region, why don't we did not just put professionals, right, medical professionals on this task force, we put pregnant women themselves on the task force as well, so they can help guide and design future projects and programs that will hopefully reach others who may be a little resistant, right? I think sometimes folks forget that some of the reasons why folks avoid going to the hospital, going to the doctor, is because the way they've been treated in the past. Yes. And that's led to earlier death of not just black women, but also black men as well. So they have to be at the table, and you, as the mayor, you have to be intentional about that. It may step on some toes because maybe a hospital CEO, a hospital executive wants to know, why am I at the table with a person with a 9 to 5, right? But you have to live those experiences. And so putting individuals at the table who can help design the program, design the project, I think has to be of top priority.
I absolutely agree. Oftentimes we call the experts, we call the elected leaders, we call appointed leaders to the table. But having the community that we serve, they're the most important voices at the table. And when we invite them, we always say, well, why don't people come to community meetings? Well, oftentimes once they arrive, we talk in acronyms, we talk above their understanding, causing them to feel terribly disenfranchised, feeling like they don't belong there and that they don't have a voice. We cannot have their participation be superficial. They're making a sacrifice oftentimes by leaving their children, maybe taking off of work, or showing up to a place where they're nervous and anxious about and don't feel welcome. And so we have to make sure that we're welcoming them, that we are listening to them, and that we're including their lived experiences, their concerns, and their desires in how we plan and we put together our programs. With us, we have some of the things, so we also, I'm an MGI mayor or a mayor for guaranteed income, so we are launching our program for $500 a month as well to give to families. We are also doing what we call baby cafes. And baby cafes, again, women of color, especially Black women, are not necessarily confident when it comes to breastfeeding. And so we're trying to push for about a 25 to 40% increase in breastfeeding. And I think right now we have to use this moment, this crisis. You can't waste a good crisis. And in this country right now, we have mothers who are looking for formula. I can't tell you, I'm getting texts from grandmothers and wealthy women saying, I can't find formula, Mayor. And so this is the time to talk to women of color, poor women, about really taking advantage of lactation services that are available in their community, making sure that we have policies in City Hall, in businesses, and all throughout the community that they can take breaks, that we have lactation rooms. That's something for a lot of Black women who were wet nurses back in slavery time, right? So you still hear them saying, well, I don't want to breastfeed, we were wet nurses, I'd rather give a bottle. And so we have to understand some of those cultural challenges. And the other thing that we do in our community is we really have public-private partnerships where we lift up big community baby showers. We take for granted that people have the basic equipment that they need, cribs, strollers, baby seats, formula, and all of the different items that you get when your family and friends come together. And many women oftentimes don't have this. So we really put together community baby showers because we want people to have dignity. Dignity is a very important element in delivering these services. We don't want these women to feel like they're begging, not just the women, the fathers, the children. We want to make them feel proud and as if we are doing this especially for them, not because they're poor, not because they're uneducated, but because they deserve it. That their children deserve a great start at life, and that they are mothers and fathers who could provide that, and that we're partners with them in doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, here.
Yes, lots of great ideas up here. So another thing that, I'd like to ask you all about is childcare. We know that right now in this country we have a childcare crisis. A lot of this is due to, coming out of the pandemic. A lot of childcare workers lost their jobs because centers had to close. And this is obviously another issue that is deeply connected with maternal health, and just moms having, being able to go to work stress-free and not having to worry about, the caring for their children. So can you share a little bit about what you all are doing around the childcare issues in your state?
Yeah, I'm very proud of this. A couple weeks ago, I actually held a press conference and announced a number of grants to expand childcare, universal pre-K seats in the city of Richmond. 280 new seats.
Wow.
Funded by the American Rescue Plan. Shout out to President Biden for that. 280 new seats, which that's an expansion going to organizations like the YWCA, the YMCA, other local nonprofit organizations. And moving forward, I think, once again, mayors have to invest in expanding those child care seats. And also, when you do this as well, we allow for women to get back to work as well.
Absolutely.
People forget that during the pandemic, it was women who really lost the most
Yes.
during this. Kids had to be home, schools were closed, and some of our hardworking women never returned back to the workplace. And so by recognizing, seeing women where they are, we expanded those child care spaces. Women can now go back to work and become salary earners as well.
That's great.
So as a former YMCA CEO and social worker, I at one time I had 10 licensed child care facilities under my leadership. And so we've worked with our school district to not just have pre-K, but we've moved it down to what we call 3K. And I believe Mayor Spano is in here from Yonkers, they've done the same. So moving pre-K down to 3 years old, continuing to work with the not-for-profit organizations, and working with our county and our state government to expand child care subsidies, and as well as increase the eligibility. So those are some of the things that we've been doing.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have to wrap now, and I hope you all are taking away lots of wonderful ideas from these two phenomenal mayors when it comes to addressing the maternal health crisis in this country, and hopefully you'll take that back and be inspired to do the same in your communities. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gabe Amo, Deputy Director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Gabe has been a partner with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He has worked so closely with our CEO from the very first days of the Biden-Harris administration on priorities such as passing and implementing ARPA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, public safety, and so much more. And Gabe has helped us, again, by working with Tom to make sure we had the key policy decision makers here with us for our annual meeting. Please join me in welcoming Gabe Amo.
Thank you so much, Mayor Suarez, for that warm introduction, and I'm thrilled to be here. I have the great honor and distinct privilege of serving as the President's lead contact between the Biden-Harris administration and our nation's mayors. I also want to acknowledge my colleagues in this work, our Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Julie Rodriguez, who is not here with us today, our Associate Director, Evan Wessel, and the many members of the federal family, especially my intergovernmental partners who are here this weekend. A round of applause for them, too. Thank you. Looking into a sea of local leadership from this stage, I have to say, for someone in my job, it doesn't get much better than this. I get to be here in Reno at the 90th annual meeting of the United States Conference of Mayors and hear directly from mayors all across the country about the transformative investments you are making with the support of the American Rescue Plan in areas like broadband, workforce, housing, and public safety. Your plans to rebuild our country with the historic funding of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and learn more about all the work you are doing daily to build stronger, safer communities, address equity, and improve the lives of your residents. This is the best part of my job, because this is what it's all about: supporting America's cities and unlocking opportunity. Ultimately, partnering with our mayors is essential in President Biden's vision to bring people together to get things done, to unite our country, prove we can rebuild America and overcome obstacles, and show how to move America forward and prepare for the future. And that vision is evident here in this room today. There's no question that mayors know how to bring people together to get things done. You prove it every day. You did it on ARPA, you did it on Bill, and your advocacy on so many critical issues is how we are making progress. You also help show how we can unite together around common sense solutions to some of the biggest challenges we face, from climate change to homelessness to gun violence and combating hate. As demonstrated by the Vice President's powerful address yesterday, we're in the fight together for federal action to build upon the work that you've done to address the rise in gun violence that has claimed far too many innocent lives. While we still face challenges, we've made progress in rebuilding America and showing we can do big things again. The American economy has recovered faster than the world's other major economies and is poised to grow faster than China's this year for the first time since 1976. We're also facing global economic difficulties that are hitting families across the country. Elevated inflation, global supply chain issues, and Putin's invasion of Ukraine. But we're addressing them from a position of strength. And the president has a plan to address inflation, his top economic priority, and transition our country to stable, steady growth while lowering some of the most important costs that families face. But there's no question that we've made enormous progress and have tools for that progress, like the Infrastructure Law's Internet for All initiative, which will invest $45 billion to provide affordable, reliable, high-speed internet for everyone in America by the end of this decade. Also, the resources to build resilient infrastructure and reconnect our communities with a focus on equity, and historic funding for public transit, and the work of building out our nation's electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So, I truly believe that our ability to continue to tackle the priorities in front of us and work to build a better America is dependent on our continued partnership with this conference, with mayors. Restoring trust in government is not an abstract concept. At the end of the day, one of the best ways that government can build public trust is by proving to Americans that we can deliver results and improve their lives. And you're on the front lines of that work. I want mayors to know you have an ally in the White House and the president, all the way on down to his staff. And whether you want to connect with our thought leaders as you execute your bold ideas to improve your cities, or you need support at a time of difficulty, we are here for you. Do not ever hesitate to call on us. I know that many of you have my cell phone number, right, Tom? And haven't hesitated to use it. So please continue to reach out to us. We are grateful for your leadership and advocacy, thankful for your innovative ideas and actions, and appreciative of your partnership. I am so thankful to be here with you today, and I look forward to continuing to work together. Have a wonderful rest of the annual meeting. Thank you.
Bloomberg Philanthropies has been a strong partner of the United States Conference of Mayors for years, and during the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, our partnership grew even stronger. It began in March of 2020 when the Conference of Mayors was a partner and supporter of the Bloomberg Harvard Coronavirus Local Response Initiative. In April of that year, together with Bloomberg Philanthropies, we launched our city fiscal tracking and federal reimbursement series, where together we help mayors and their teams navigate the federal reimbursement process for COVID expenditures. From that series, we launched last summer the Federal Assistance E311 series, which expanded upon reimbursement and included additional funding opportunities from the American Rescue Act. Just weeks ago, we announced our latest partnership with Bloomberg Philanthropies on the Local Infrastructure Hub, an initiative that aims to help small and medium-sized cities access funds from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. To talk more about this initiative, let's welcome Jamie Lavin, the Senior Program Manager on the Government Innovations team at Bloomberg Philanthropies, who is leading the work on the E311 series and the Local Infrastructure Hub. Jamie, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Suarez, for your introduction. My name is Jamie Lavin, and I am a member of the Government Innovation team at Bloomberg Philanthropies. On behalf of Mike Bloomberg and Jim Anderson, who leads our portfolio, it is my pleasure to be here today. Bloomberg has been proud to partner with the U.S. Conference of Mayors for many years. Thanks to Mike's vision, Bloomberg is the world's only major foundation with a core pillar of our work dedicated to investing in cities and supporting the people who lead them. We are also a foundation that believes deeply in collaboration. So it's exciting when we can join forces with an organization whose mission so closely aligns with our own. Starting in 2017 with the launch of the American Cities Initiative, where we united to ensure that the voices of mayors were front and center in national conversations on the most pressing issues, to our work in 2020, fighting disinformation and surrounding vaccines, and supporting mayors in their efforts to save lives, to E311 and subsequent efforts that I'll talk about in a minute. We are grateful to be in collaboration with the U.S. Conference of Mayors team on the issues that matter. Every time Tom Cochran calls, we jump at the chance to deepen our work together. It's a privilege to be back at the conference. Since January's winter convening in Washington, we've been hard at work. As you all know, across the United States, cities are leveraging the more than $1 trillion from the Biden administration's Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to make historic investments in projects spanning from ports, parks, and broadband to challenges like climate change and racial wealth inequity. However, with nearly 400 separate grants opening over the next 24 months, it can be difficult for communities to identify and apply for all the funding available. That's why I'm here today, to talk about the announcement of the Local Infrastructure Hub. Bloomberg and Philanthropies and the U.S. Conference of Mayors, in partnership with the National League of Cities and Results for America, and with support from the Kresge Foundation, the Emerson Collective, and the Ford Foundation, are launching the Local Infrastructure Hub to ensure that cities and towns all across this country can access federal funding to get creative and deliver big results for residents. The hub, as we call it, will bring together resources and provide coaching, webinars, data analysis, and technical assistance to local leaders as they develop applications. The program will deliver 3 key things. 1, we're going to make it easy to find the grants that make the most sense for your city and ensure that the opportunities align with your community's top priorities. 2, we know that many cities are struggling and don't have the capacity to put their best foot forward in applications. And that's why we're going to bring together nonprofits, city networks, and world-class experts to help you leverage these critical resources. And 3, we're going to allow your cities to tap into our deep well of policy expertise so that you can create ambitious projects on complex issues like racial wealth inequity and climate change. This initiative grew out of the first of its kind E311 program that we launched together at the start of the pandemic to help cities navigate the federal recovery funding maze. And through our efforts, we confirmed just how critical local leadership was in driving economic recovery in a sustainable, equitable way, especially when mayors had the resources they needed to drive decisions right at their fingertips. Though it was no surprise to us, the proof paved the way to the creation of the hub. We pulled together our forces under the incredible leadership shown by the Biden administration in encouraging civil society and the private sector to lean into this work. Thank you, Gabe. And we applaud their efforts to bring philanthropy to the table to act in tangent and for centering the needs of capacity-constrained communities in the process. Here is an opportunity for mayors and city leaders to fully harness the historic funding provided by the infrastructure bill to rebuild, reinvest, and disrupt the status quo. We want to help you usher in a new era of innovative and equitable solutions. The Hub is that final push to make sure these advancements happen and are as impactful as possible, stepping in to bring clarity and direction to what's often an unfathomable and daunting application process, especially for smaller cities and towns. Together, our efforts will galvanize the best expertise out there and put it into service for your communities when they need it the most. We're excited to see the results that the Hub will deliver. Our first offerings will be in July, and you should expect to get more information about how to participate soon. Thank you for your service, and we look forward to continuing our work together.
And now, to tell us more about the Mayor's Play Ball Initiative, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mayor Victoria Woodards, Mayor Doug Palmer, and Archie, the mascot for the Reno Aces. Let's hear about Play Ball.
Well, good afternoon. It is such an honor to be here on stage this afternoon with my good friend Doug Palmer and the mascot from the Reno Aces. Let's show him some love.
Satch. Satch.
For the past 7 years, Major League Baseball and the conference have partnered to expose youth to baseball and softball fun at mayoral play ball events. Play ball is such a great way to connect local young people in your city. Archie was a big part of the mayor's play ball event the other night when the Aces played my own team, the Tacoma Rainiers. We had the pleasure of throwing out the first pitch and hosting local youth from the Down Syndrome Network of Northern Nevada. And can't you just see the joy in those smiles? We had such a good time, and Mayor Sheevy and I decided that since we never get to do the major league game bets, that we would make a bet with each other on our minor league teams. I am proud to say that the Tacoma Rainiers shut out the Aces 7-0.
Ooh.
I think we beat them up pretty bad, but the fun part of it is that the mayor and I made a bet. And the bet was whoever loses has to wear the other team's jersey on a council day. So next Wednesday, Mayor Sheevy will be wearing a Tacoma Rainiers jersey during the whole day at her council because we beat them. And I almost think because we beat them so bad, she might have to do it on 2 different days. But so delighted to be a part of this program and to have Doug Palmer with me. Doug, I'll hand it to you.
Thanks, Mayor, and congratulations. Mayors, thank you for participating in Play Ball these last 7 years. Any new mayors, please sign up outside at our booth so that you can participate and be a Play Ball mayor. And the beauty of Play Ball program is how it targets young people ages 5 to 12 years old of all abilities. Mayoral events are for kids who really don't traditionally play the sport and may not go on to a Little League team or have a chance to experience the fun of America's pastime. Victoria has been a Play Ball mayor since she came into office. She is kind of like the 7th inning, and it's time to stretch how we do our mayoral events. This year, mayors will be encouraged to host Vitia games during Hispanic Heritage Month. This wiffle ball type game is a fast, fun way to play baseball with a bottle cap and stick. Now, I'm going to demonstrate.
Oh.
Now, you know, I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, so be careful, be careful. Seriously, now be careful, because I was a former baller.
Oh, Lord.
You better duck, too, because
Yeah.
you gotta be
Okay,
careful.
you ready? Okay. I got to get warmed up. Got to get my arm ready to go. You ready, Doug?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh!
Woo! It was a foul ball. I thought that was a home run. Go ahead, Doug. Take the bases.
Hey, you don't know. I'm glad I fouled it, believe me.
Listen, these games can easily be set up near most of our city halls and in local city parks. I really encourage you to invite local youth and families for a fun afternoon of Vatia and Sandlot baseball fun. You know, a lot of top MLB players started out playing Vatia. Play ball mayors, in the coming months, we will be mailing each of you a signed copy of True, The 4 Seasons of Jackie Robinson by Costa Kennedy. If you have any questions or need assistance, please follow up with Tim McClement, Jocelyn Jarrett at the Play Ball booth, or you can always track down this great Play Ball mayor who will talk to you as well. Thank you all so much and have a great day.
Play ball. All right, Sash.
I was legitimately worried for Doug Palmer there. That was extremely dangerous. Our liability carrier should be notified, and we should never do that again. And I'm so glad none of you in the audience got hurt. But before we adjourn, it's my great pleasure to announce the launch of the 2023 Childhood Obesity Prevention and Environmental Health and Sustainability Awards. God, these are long names. I mean, could we add a couple more awards to it? Since 2012, this historic and unprecedented partnership between the United States Conference of Mayors and the American Beverage Foundation for a Healthy America has distributed more than $5 million to more than 60 cities of all sizes. Across the country, from Seattle to my own city of Miami and dozens of communities in between. While this partnership began in direct response to what was then the rising epidemic of childhood obesity across America, we've since expanded the awards to address environmental as well as child health, because we recognize that if we want kids to get off their screens and engage in physical activity, we've got to create safe spaces, parks, and trails, and other green spaces for them to play. And we recognize that if we want kids to eat more fruits and vegetables, that means for many communities, not only educating kids and their families about healthy eating habits, but also providing them with the means to grow their own produce, especially in food deserts and other areas with limited access to supermarkets. The programs we've awarded over the last decade have done some groundbreaking work, and heading into our second decade and 11th award cycle, we expect to award 9 more groundbreakers in 2023. A quick note on eligibility: if you're a member of the United States Conference of Mayors, you're eligible. Period, full stop. These 3 cash prizes will be awarded in the category of small, medium, and large cities, with each of the top awards exceeding $100,000. In fact, for large cities, it's $250,000. The application process officially opens on June 15th. We will send out an official notification, and we'll also promote it through Tom's massive blog and all of the conference's social media channels. Tom, your social media is just exploding as we speak. In the meantime, if you have any questions about the awards, you can stop by the American Beverage Association exhibit table here in Reno and reach out to us through the awards webpage at the address on the screen. On behalf of all of us here at the Conference of Mayors, good luck. Thank you to everyone for your attendance this afternoon. Our next round of standing committee meetings starts at 3 p.m. sharp. Consult your agendas for the meeting rooms. This session is adjourned.